Yep. All right. Well, next is the Elite 11, which happens on Sunday in State College. We're going to preview all of that here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. These are the highlights from last year. A lot of interesting things that we learned. Watched Andrew Olish up close and personal for the first time. Got to see some of Penn State's prospects and commits. Lyric Samuel was there last year. So it's not just about the quarterbacks, but it's a lot about the quarterbacks because there's going to be two of them that Penn State has in its class of 2026 that will be at that event. And so I want to get your perspective on what you're looking for. We're all going to be there. I'll be providing you highlights as best I can of everything that goes on. There's so much stuff going on, though. So I want to get your perspective, Fitz, on which one of these quarterbacks. They're both interesting. I guess which one of them do you think we'll learn the most about, and which one has the most to gain from this experience?
Oh, that's tough. Most to gain is probably Pton Faone, just looking at what he brings to the table as a physical specimen. But he's going to be up against other quarterbacks that, are a little bit more refined in terms of passing. So, and this is a passing event. You look at what he does the best, and it is be an athlete on the football field, a moose in pads, if you will. And he's not going to have, there's not going to be a drill where he takes off and runs 55 yards. It's going to be a passing expose, and we will see if his work with Brad Mandler has helped him out there. Now he's incredibly physically talented, got a huge arm, but the precision and everything is kind of what matters in this situation. And I don't like to draw too much from it, but you can see a lot in terms of the competition, in terms of how he's going to respond to other guys throwing. Like that is one big thing that we noticed last year when we were watching a pretty good group of quarterbacks that were there, that the internal competition between these guys that are, peers in the same class, it brings out the best in some, and some kind of crack under that pressure. So very curious, because I would assume, not having seen the list of groupings, that Troy Hune and Pton Faone will be in the same grouping together, the 1A group of 2026 prospects. So I'm excited to see both of them. Hune has always been very good in this setting. He earned an invite to the Under Armour All-American game based on his work at the Under Armour camp out in LA, I believe it was. So you've got an opportunity for him to continue that. And I think he's going to do really well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talk about him slipping in the rankings or whatever with the hand quotes, and that's a lot of padded stuff. That is a lot of what he does on Friday nights, Saturday nights, whenever he plays. So I think that is a question that we will not get an answer to this weekend, but I do expect Hune to throw the ball really well this weekend.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think of the situation? I also find it interesting. Neither of these guys are taking their official visits this weekend. And for Hune, that means another trip here to State College in, I don't know, June, May, whenever it is. Where he's May 30th.
They wouldn't want them. Penn State wants them to come this weekend. They want them to come that weekend, May 30th. And then they want them to do a couple weeks after that for the whiteout camp at the end of the month. But I'm just excited to see them both up close. Like, we've seen Pton Faone enough now. Like, I understand that. For me, it's more so Troy, with him being out in California and just some of the limited information that we have on him. Now, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, did they run and
they test them?
Tested this?
Yeah, they test.
So trying to learn a little bit on that would be good. Not that I expect Troy to blow the world away or anything like that, but we just know how good of an athlete Pton Faone is. I'd be just curious to learn a little bit about Troy as well.
Yeah, I think to me, the interesting thing is going to be watching these guys in some of the drills that aren't just drop back and throw. So both of these guys in context from what I've seen from them on film. Troy Hune is in an offense that runs so many RPOs. What does he look like when he's just dropping back and throwing? I think there's a certain aspect of the conversation around Troy Hune and his involvement in the wins and losses and his production, where not every throw is going to be an RPO throw at the next level. And not that they all are in his offense, but there's very much a emphasis on running the ball on his offense and then playing off of that. And again, these aren't criticisms of the offensive coordinators. These are just what these teams are trying to do to win and play to the best of their talent. Pton Faone, on the other side, obviously there is there's the throwing aspect of his new mechanics, but also one of the things that I think he struggles with the most is throwing on the run, because he tends to try and jump, and I don't necessarily know why he does that. So how does he throw in context of that, and how does he throw on some of those intermediate routes? Because his offense it was a lot of maybe dink and dunk and spread offense, throw something short, and then bombs away. If they get a one-on-one, they have receivers running routes down the field all the time. And I know his particular completion percentage and his throwing motion has been a big part of the conversation this offseason. It's also the fact that he's selecting a lot of these deep shots. So what does the bulk of him throwing not deep balls look like? I'm interested in all of those contexts from these two guys to see how they look like in conditions that are set up for them to be challenged, but also they're going to go through everything. We're going to see all of the throws from them. And I think that's as valuable as, watching the competition or just what's their completion percentage like. Couple minutes here left. I don't know. I know, Ryan, I want to dig a little bit more into this. You mentioned LeVar Keys and Jasir Rogers are going to be here this weekend. So the All-22 camp on top of that is a great opportunity to see and get testing numbers on some of these guys as well. So what do you think of the opportunity for Penn State to have these guys in their backyard again as well?
They've been as consistent as they can get, right? Like I'm not, if that's what you're asking, like getting them back on campus and all those things.
No.
Okay.
No. Just generally, like to get testing numbers on them and to have them be part.
We already know that we already got all those testing numbers.
I want to see Rogers and Keys race because they were both in the 4.3s last year at camp, so that'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, we know what they can run. I'm not worried about it. Yeah. Hey, one thing I will say to you, like Christian was asking a question, can you go and watch the Elite 11? I don't think they'll let you in to sit in the stands, but it's at Memorial Field, right? Like you can just go up to the fence and watch it.
You can be outside. I don't know if they let people into the actual stands, but
just parents.
Parents, and if you're registered for the camp, but you can stand out there and watch it around it. I mean, it's interesting to some. I mean, it's
a long day.
Yeah. Christian, I'll give you my credential if you want. No, I'm just kidding. I'm coming up. But I mean, I would go check it out. Right. It starts at 9. Like, so it'll be a lot of other positions early. Like if you want to come up and watch Troy Hune and Pton Faone throw, what would be 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock be a good time to come out? Would you say? As far as like, that's kind of, it's kind of when it's winding. Like that's when we're doing one-on-ones and it's the best on the best. And if that's something you're interested in, I would say 2 o'clock-ish would probably be a good time. You guys were there last year. I was there before it moved to the new field. So
time has no meaning because it's infinite. Like it starts at 9:30, it goes to 3, and it's like you're locked in the entire time. So I don't know when times of things happen, but it was later in the day, 1 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
11:30 is when they start the passing drills where they're all going. There's 100 quarterbacks throwing all at the same time. But they narrowing it down to some of those, as you mentioned, one-on-ones is later in the day for sure.
And then we had one other thing on the rundown, from the mailbag, D. Frank. How many recruits do you think they will end up this year? Someone's asking, can they end up with 30? Let's just do the math, right? So we're at 17 now. I think 3 more O-linemen, fair. I think Sean would agree with that. 2 more defensive ends. I would think that just because of the talent in the region, you have Daniel Jennings already. 2 more is probably a safer bet. Maybe it could be more. We'll see. Obviously, if they got Luke Wayful and Jackson Ford and you got Carter Meadows out there, of course, they're taking 3. So we'll say at least 2 to 3 there. So that would put you about 22, 23. Ty Howell has done hard enough work recruiting 3 quality tight ends that I think there's a good chance he's going to get one of them. So we'll say 23, 24. And then Terry Smith has to get some corners. So 24, 25, you add in one of those 2 athletic guys that, Joey O'Brien, for example, who, we're talking about him as a safety, but let's not forget Penn State has really pushed in the chips on him being able to play wherever the heck he wants to play. So keep that in mind. You got a couple of those talented players that, they're not going to pass up no matter what the numbers are.
Yeah.
All along what we're saying, I think 27 is realistic. I think 30 is probably a bit of a stretch. But I think 10 more players in this class, I think you get to 24, 25, and then you just kind of push your chips in like they did on an Andrew Olish last year or some other guys, whatever you got left, and you add a few more at late.
If they got to 30, it would be some situation where maybe in September or October, something fell into their lap where they couldn't turn it down. More so than they'll end up with 30 in the summer.
And there's more flexibility. And there's more flexibility there, even though the House settlement has not been approved, that you're looking more at 105 than 85 anymore. And, they've essentially been above 85 anyway, but there's creative math can make that work where you're still within the parameters of what is out there. So you don't really clench as much, if that makes sense, whenever you're talking about taking extra guys. And you gotta strike while the iron's hot. I mean, D end is great in the region. I mean, elite in the region compared to every other year. D tackle is still, there's still a bunch of guys like Carter Gooden got bumped to number 70 overall in 24/7 yesterday, and he's a guy that we talk about is not in the top tier of defensive tackles. Like there's
I thought that was a little high.
Lineman. Like you'll take that kid, yeah. And then Pennsylvania. Penn State does extend itself for Pennsylvania kids. It is what it is there. So
like a Tavion Branch, if he decided late he wanted to do something
like a Branch, like an Ashton Blatt at Central Catholic, you've got opportunities for guys that maybe aren't no brainers to still be a part of this class. So I think that you look at the math and it's not your typical we got to cap it at 25 because we got to worry about the numbers in the class of 2027. I don't think it's there anymore. So you've got an opportunity to do that. And plus with the ins and the outs, that's kind of what the math that you're working with anymore. So it's very, very different than it was 5-10 years ago.